Greetings, guys. It's Fancy, publisher and editor-in-chief of Swagger Magazine. I'm also the CEO of Swagger Magazine, I guess I should include. And today I am returning with my CEO Chatter Live segment. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but this is, as I call it, where business and life intersect, because I feel like as business owners, we always have, life plays a part in whatever it is that we're doing. Like, it still influences how we do business. Hey there, hey, I see a lot of y'all are coming in, and I see our guest for today, which is Kianna Chennault. I may not be saying it correctly. Hi, Dr. Tyra is in, so I'm going to go ahead on and bring her in so we can get started. Let's see. It's been a while. I'm trying to see if I can wait with some of y'all. Greetings, you came right on in. Okay, no problems at all. I'm good, and you?
No problems. How are you?
Well, that's good. So
I'm
to
good,
just
thank
kind
you.
of jump right into things, I think it's always best for the guests to tell everyone who they are, because you can do it better than I can. So tell our guests a little bit about who you are.
Sure. My name is Kianna Chennault, and I am a business rights attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been practicing law for over 5 years, well, about 5 years now. It's hard to believe. Prior to opening my own law firm, I worked as a prosecutor.
You kind of went out toward the end. You said prior to owning your law firm, you worked as a prosecutor.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Could you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. Okay. It seems like it's kind of a delay. But when you were saying you worked as a prosecutor, and then you said something towards the end of that, and I don't know if I'm losing her. Yeah, there is a delay. Am I freezing up, y'all, or can y'all still see me? I'm wondering if it's me. I see hearts, but can y'all let me know in the comments? Or is it me? Okay, thank you. Be the buzz. Okay, so it's not me. It seems like she froze up. She'll be back with us, I'm sure, shortly. But I don't know if she'll have to close out and come back in or not. Okay. Okay. So she's going to be coming back in, guys, and I'm going to increase my volume a little. So what we're doing is we're talking about the 10 contracts that every business owner should have, to operate their business. So Kianna is an attorney, and she's going to be sharing the information with us once she's able to come back in. Trying to see if I saw her in the audience. Okay. So I just sent you another invite, Kianna. Well, let me see. So we should be back on in just a minute, because I do want you all, like, the purpose of this segment is basically to provide you all with tools and tips from experts, business experts, so that you can continue to grow your business. Of course, with Swagger Magazine, we are really big on Black business women and just ownership and entrepreneurship, and just finding different ways to help you all grow while we grow as well. So we also take in all of this knowledge. Like, I'm eager to learn what are the agreements that I need to have in my possession as a business owner. Because we do have some agreements, but I might be missing something. Like, you never know until you actually are in the mix of things. So, okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. So I'll go ahead and start over. Again, my name is Kianna Chennault, and I am a business and civil rights attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. Prior to opening my own law firm, I worked for Fulton County District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor for a few years. It was there that I practiced criminal law, and I kind of learned criminal law backwards and forwards, and got a little burnt out and really got tired of prosecuting, frankly, people who look like me, mostly Black men. most of the victims were Black, a lot of Black women, and it just didn't feel good. And so I started to feel like I was more so part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I opened my firm in part because I wanted to empower Black people with a way to gain and retain wealth. And I really see entrepreneurship as a major vehicle to do that. And so in my law firm, I help mostly Black and brown business owners sustain and create legal businesses. In addition to that, I also take civil rights cases for people who have had their rights violated by
and I love that just your backstory, you know, how you saw, well, I'm not gonna say you were the problem, but you know that you saw that there was something that wasn't right there, and you found a way to, you know, correct things. So I love what you're doing. So you did say that you had been practicing law for 5 years. That's correct? Okay. Okay, so what was it that attracted you to like the legal field anyway, before we even get into things?
Yeah, so I went to Howard University for undergrad. If there's any Bison on, hey Bison. And when I went to Howard, and I'm sure it's still like this today, but they were really big on, you know, being there for the purpose of your community and not just there for yourself. And so I really began to change when I attended Howard, and I thought, what could I do with my life that would impact others besides myself? And so while I was there, I began to study gentrification and recidivism in the criminal justice system. And so I majored in criminal justice and psychology, thinking that I would help with recidivism or rehabilitation or something like that. And then before I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to survive in jail. I'm like, so I thought, okay, why don't I go the government route and work on policy and work on laws? And so I eventually got my master's in public administration. I guess about 2 years after I graduated from Howard, I got my MPA, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready. I'm ready to go in the government and change lives. And it just seemed like it still wasn't enough. I don't know if you guys remember, you know, 2012 degrees, and the jobs still were like nowhere to be found. And so I found myself working a job that was a good job. I actually worked for Lockheed Martin, which is a major defense contractor. And I worked at the plant here in Marietta. So it was a good job, but it just wasn't something I was passionate about. And so I just thought, you know, what's something I can do to just really set myself apart so I can really get into the field that I want to be in. And so I was going to go back and get my PhD in public administration. And the guy I was dating at the time, which is actually my husband now, he was like, why don't you just go to law school? And I was like, law school? And I really had never thought about it. I never considered it. I thought law school just was too hard and I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I said, well, I'll give it a try, you know. So I really took it step by step. I said, okay, if I can manage a practice exam, then I'll take the real exam, then I'll apply to schools. And God really blessed me. I did really well on the LSAT, and I was able to get a full scholarship to Georgia State Law School. So, you know, the rest is history. But yeah, I've just really been blessed and,
wow.
and really
I
had the
actually
right people in my
interviewed
life.
Shan Cooper from Lockheed Martin like years ago when she was there. So yeah. So
Wow. Yes, and I've met her a couple times. You know, I worked with her, but it was like 8,000
yeah,
employees there, so you can't really
I
work
get it.
with them. But,
So
you know
now,
what I mean.
also before we even get into the 10 agreements that are needed, what I wanted to know, just I think that oftentimes people do wonder, what is it that makes an agreement like legally binding? Before we even discuss the agreements that we need, so what like should we have or shouldn't we have, or you know?
Yeah. So there's actually 6 items that you need in Georgia to have a contract be legally binding. So I don't want to bore y'all and give y'all a whole legal lesson, but the basics, the 3 basics you need are an offer, which means you're offering someone services, or you're offering them a space, or you're
Mhm.
offering them something. You're making them a promise, right? I promise this event space will be open for you, or I promise that I will take your photos on this date. So you have your offer, and then you have an acceptance. So the person who you're offering your service or your space to has to accept that agreement the same way you want them to, right? So if you send me, for instance, a contract that says, hey, if you accept, you have to pay a deposit and sign this contract, and that'll be acceptance. Well, if I just sign the contract and don't send you a deposit, right, I didn't really accept the way you wanted me to accept. So we need to have acceptance, and then we have to have consideration, which basically means there's an exchange. So you're getting something, I'm getting something. And so when you have those three things, you kind of have the bare bones, but then there are three other things that you need. At least in Georgia, I can speak to Georgia's contract law. You need three other things to really make it binding. But basically, you want to look for the details, right? So if I hire you to write something for me, right, to write an article or write my book or something like that, you need to know the length of the book. You need to know what date I need it by, right? So if certain pertinent details are missing from the contract, it may not be enforceable, because the question then becomes, well, how did that person know how they had to perform? And so we want to be as specific as possible if you're going to be drafting.
And also, I just wonder if those things might be like kind of basically like the who, what, where, when, why, as far as the details. Okay. So now let's get into the actual contracts, which is why I'm certain most of you all are here, because we want to know what it is that we need to have as business owners to make certain that we're operating legitimately. So if you can just, I guess you can go through the list and just kind of tell us the importance and a little bit, about what it actually is, that would be good.
Okay, sure. So the first thing that you want to have, so if you actually own a legally sustainable business, meaning that you registered with the state, right? So if you're in Georgia, you register with the state of Georgia. You're in New York, you register with the state of New York, or wherever you are. So you have a legally registered business. You want to have an operating agreement. And your operating agreement it's an internal document, so you really never show anybody that unless you get audited by the IRS. They may want to see it, but it's basically an internal document about how you want to run your business. So, who's going to be your tax representative? What's the name of your organization going to be? What's going to be your principal place of business? So things like that you want to have in your operating agreement. Who your business interests are going to vest to in case of your death or incapacitation. You want to have that in there. So details like that. Now, if you are a solo member organization, this is basically just a document that's going to stay in your records. Like I said, unless you get audited by the IRS, or unless, God forbid, something happens to you, your business is still open, someone may go through your operating agreement to see, okay, let's see what her plans were. Other than that, it's just going to be between you and yourself. But if you do have more than one member in your organization, that operating agreement becomes a contract between the partners or between the members of that organization. And so it's really important. I've had several clients who have an organization with more than one member and they've never entered into an operating agreement, and then somebody wants to leave and it's like, okay, what do we do? Do we pay them out? Do we give them nothing? How much should we give them? And so that operating agreement really becomes a contract between the members. So if you have more than one person in your organization, you definitely want to have an operating agreement. You want to have it signed by everybody in the agreement, everybody in the organization. So you have your operating agreement. You want to have a NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement. An NDA is going to protect your intellectual property. And I think sometimes people miss the value of their ideas. We'll set up the IG, we'll get the website going with the domain name, but we won't take the time to really protect those ideas. And unfortunately, I come across a lot of business owners who has the IG, who has the website, but they don't own their name. They don't own their intellectual property. And it can be, if somebody can steal it, or somebody could already have had it before you. And so it's really important that as business owners, we take our intellectual property seriously. You can get another building. You can buy another t-shirt machine. A lot of things are replaceable, but your ideas aren't. So you really want to get in the habit from the beginning of opening your business, protecting your intellectual property. And one of the major ways that you do that is by having an NDA. An NDA can be signed by partners. So say you're considering partnering with someone and you guys haven't solidified the details yet, but you want to talk, you want to be able to talk freely, then you want to have them sign an NDA, because you wouldn't want that person to listen to your ideas and say, okay, I'm not going to work with you, and then go do that with someone else. And then vice versa, right? That person wants to be protected as well. Some people also have an NDA for their spouses, right? So if you reach a certain, or their partners before they're married, if you reach a certain pinnacle in your career, you become a target, right? And so, exes may come out the woodwork and say, hey, he or she used to do this, or they got videos and things like that. So one way to protect yourself as a business owner is to have an NDA, so that they can't, release those things. So if they do, there's consequences. So you want to have one for that reason. And then just if you have a contractor or employees working for you and they're going to be assessing where they're going to have access to sensitive information. So say you have like your clients list, you have their email addresses. Well, you wouldn't want an employee, recouping that information and then emailing your clients and being like, hey, I'll do it for you for 50% off. You know what I mean? So that would be a problem. And so you definitely want to have your NDAs in place.
No, and just to
Any
recap, as
questions about
people are
that?
coming in and out, so far we have the operating agreement, and then you've also discussed the NDA. Okay.
Yes. Okay. You want to have insurance. So insurance, I'm really not going in a certain order, but insurance should probably be because you want to protect your personal assets in case anything happens in your business. So God forbid, if you, for instance, Fancy, if you were to have an event in person and someone slips and falls, right, and their injuries is $20,000 worth of injuries, right, you wouldn't want to pay that yourself. You may not even want your business to pay for it. So that's where your insurance comes in. And so you always want, from the beginning that you start your business, you want, if you're not having events in person, then your insurance is really not going to be that much. We're talking $15 to $20 a month. I meet a lot of business owners who they seem intimidated by insurance and getting insurance. I think people think it's going to be like their car insurance, or their house insurance, but it's so much cheaper than that. Depending on what you're doing. Like if you're having skydiving events, that's probably going to be a high insurance premium. You know what I mean? But most people these days are working virtually. And so there's very little interface with people physically. And so that cuts down on insurance a lot. But you still should have some, because people sometimes get offended, online, or things happen with their personal information. If you have some kind of breach, your computer, and their information gets out, so things still happen virtually. So you still want to have insurance. And so I include that on the list. Of contracts, because it's a contract between you and the insurance company. So you want to make sure that you have it in place. So moving on from that, you want to have employment contracts. And so I'll say contracts with quotes, because Georgia, and like I said, I can speak to Georgia. Georgia is an at-will state, which means you can hire and fire at your will. And employers don't really do employment contracts, but what you want to do is at least have an offer letter that tells someone, hey, these are the terms of your employment. This is the day that you start. This is your salary. This is what benefits you're going to get. This is what our counseling process looks like if there's something that comes up during the course of your employment. So you just want to have a letter, or just a general, piece of paper that kind of gives them the terms of their employment, even though it's not really a contract. And so that's really a best practice. You want to make sure that you have your policies attached to that. So what's your employment policy, what's your discrimination policy? What is your harassment policy? What's the process by which someone can complain about issues that they're having. So you want to make sure you have all your policies attached to that letter as well, that term letter. And I think I
Yeah,
see
I was gonna
someone
say,
asked a
this lemon life
question.
asks, regarding the NDA for employees, can you also include a non-compete clause in their employment contract covering the non-solicitation of clients or other employees for that matter? Can you answer that?
Yes, and that can actually be a separate contract. So that was on my list. So that can be a separate contract, or you can include it as part of your NDA. So you kind of have flexibility with that. But yeah, a non-compete and a non-solicitation clause, it can either be a clause or a separate contract. A non-compete just basically says, that person is not going to compete with you in terms of working with businesses that do the same thing. And if you are a contractor, you really can't have those non-competes be very restrictive. So you can say, maybe you can't work with a similar business within our radius of my company. But for an employee, you can be more strict. Like you could say you cannot work with an employer who does similar things within this whole state or within the Southeast. Because as an employee, you're kind of, I don't really want to say you own the person, but you kind of own a portion of their time. There's just a different level of power that you have over an employee versus a contractor. And so for a contractor, you can still have it there. You just kind of want to keep it light. So that is the non-compete. The non-solicitation, either clause or agreement, says that your employee or contractor will not try to get your clients, so that they will not go behind them and say, hey, I'll offer you 50% off, or they won't. Yeah.
Okay, you went out
Okay.
right at the end, but I think we got all of what you were saying, and I think you definitely answered her question. But to clarify that, so is that to say that so the non-disclosure agreement and then the non-compete agreement are two separate agreements? Okay, okay.
Yeah. So separate agreements, or they can be part of one agreement, or they can
Within
actually be
one agreement.
clauses within one agreement. So you can either have it as part of your terms. Well, you can really, if you have an employee, you don't really want to put it in that in the letter, because that letter is not a contract. So you really would want to have a separate agreement for the non-compete and the non-disclosure if it's an employee. If it's a contractor, you can actually put a clause, because a contractor, you're actually giving them a contract
Gotcha.
to work with
Okay.
you or work for you.
So now then we're up
Yeah.
to 5. So what's number 6?
Yes. So a contractor agreement. So if you do have someone that's not an employee, but you want to still work with them as a contractor, you want to have a contractor agreement with them that basically the same things that you would put in an employment letter, you want to put those things in the contract, but it would actually be a contract, so it would be enforceable. So they would have a start date, they would have an end date, they would have an amount that they're supposed to get paid. They would have where they're supposed to be working with you or for you, or working for your clients, or whatever arrangements you have. You want to put all that in the contract. You also want to make it clear that they are a contractor. You want to put that in your contract. You want to make it clear that you own any intellectual property that's being produced out of that contract. And that's something that I see missing a lot with business owners. Like, they don't make sure that they own the intellectual property that's being created for them by different contractors.
Wow.
So you want to make
That's
sure
a
that you
good
have
one.
that in there.
So we should just note, like, whatever products or, becomes of this, then it's still owned by the company. Yeah, I've never that's something I've never even thought about. And I try to
Yeah.
be very cautious, and think ahead, but I think that that's a great one to note right there.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually called a work made for hire. That's the name of the clause. And so if you are hiring someone, especially if you're hiring them for the specific purpose of like taking your photos or making your logo or just something that's really related to your intellectual property, you want to definitely have a work for hire clause in there. Now, on the flip side, the person who is the creative, they would probably not want the work for hire clause in there, so that may be a point of negotiations.
Okay.
So that's something to keep in mind.
So number 7.
Yes, so you want to have a client agreement. So depending on the type of business that you're in, you may be taking clients, right? So I see a few of my clients are coaches, and so they need a client agreement to engage with their clients. And so you want to really explain what your services are, but you also want to explain what the responsibilities of the recipient are. And so you want to make sure you have all those things outlaid very well, along with the other terms of the contract that we talked about. One thing that I see a lot of business owners missing is what happens if somebody wants to terminate services? What happens if this is an appointment? How do they make that up? I often tell people, like, if you're going to be drafting yourself, think of the worst possible scenario and then how will you handle that? And so kind of work backwards from that. So I find that to be helpful because a lot of times people are drafting with, like, they're very excited. Like, I have this client, you know, so they're drafting with the point of view, they're very optimistic. And it's great to be optimistic, but my job is to kind of look for harm, you know what I mean? So that's not always fun, but in doing that, I'm able to protect my clients.
So we got to foresee the dangers, I guess you'd say. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, and then you want to have partnership agreements. So if you do decide that you want to engage with there's actually different type of partnership agreements that we'll talk about. So you have a joint venture agreement, which says, I'll just use that for an example, CEO Chatter and Chennault Law, we are going to purchase a home together. We're going to rehab it and we're going to sell it to a mom or give it away to a mom who has kids, you know, and needs help, something like that. So in that case, we are entering into a joint venture together. The joint venture is the purchase and rehab of that home. And so a joint venture agreement would just really outlay the terms of that venture that we're doing together. So that's a joint venture agreement. You also have a partnership agreement. A partnership agreement is when two people or two businesses want to work together in a partnership going forward. So say we have our joint venture agreement. We find this house, we rehab it, we sell it to a mom at 50% off, and we like, oh, we got to do this. We got to keep doing this. We may enter a general partnership by which we continue to work together indefinitely doing this same activity. And so that's what a partnership looks like. You guys are working together indefinitely doing a specific thing. So whereas a joint venture is very specific to just one thing you're doing, the general partnership is like a long-standing agreement. And then you also have a memorandum of understanding. So say, again, you and I, we want to buy these homes, but we don't want to use our own money, right? Say we want to use government money. So we can enter into an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, which is actually not an enforceable contract, but it'll basically say something like, hey, if we get this money from Joe Biden, we're going to go buy 50 homes. And so it basically outlays the terms of what you want to do, but both parties understand that it's just an understanding because we don't have the money yet. But when and if we get the money, we will enter into an enforceable contract. So that's what an MOU is. And you definitely want to make sure, you know, as a business owner, that you're picking the right partnership agreement because it's going to govern the way you move forward. So what you don't want to do is enter into like a general partnership, which is a long-standing agreement right away, without engaging with someone or working with them for a period of time, and then, you know, you may not like it. So you may want to start out with a JV, like we just gonna buy one house, you know, and go on from there. You also don't want to jump into long-term relationships because that's what a contract is, or partnership is, you don't want to jump into a long-term relationship without knowing if you're going to get the funding, right? So I see people do that. They got the contract, they got the budget, they got all these things, but they don't have the money. And so if you're doing something that requires money other than the two of you guys or the three of you, however many people it is, you probably want to have an MOU. That way you're not left on the hook for anything, because one person may be like, well, listen, we had this agreement. I still want to move forward. I still want to buy this house. And you like, wait, but we didn't get this government money, so it might be some bumping heads right there. And so an MOU would really, it's like I said, it's not legally enforceable. It's just an understanding. So that would be a good time.
Excuse me. Okay. I've never heard of an MOU. So, guys, we were discussing the different contracts that every business owner needs. And I'm sorry, let's say Dr. Kianna. Dr. Kianna is actually an attorney, a business attorney, and as well as a civil rights attorney. But she's sharing different documents that we need to have as business owners. And so far we've gone over the operating agreement, the non-disclosure agreement, insurance, employment contracts, non-compete clauses, contractor agreements, client agreements, and then the partnership agreements, which is and then / joint venture agreement. They differ depending on the time span of how long the project is going to be, or if it's going to be something ongoing. And then lastly, we have the memorandum of understanding, which is the MOU. So this has been just really informative. I think like now I'm seeing more people use the NDAs, but also I'm curious to know, like, the NDA you use for your business can't be the same one you use for somebody that you're dating, because it needs to be more detailed or something.
You can use the same one, but you probably will want to change the subject matter a little bit. So like a business one would say, hey, we're entering into these conversations because we expect to explore a business opportunity together. You might say something like that. Now, with a personal relationship, you would say, hey, we're into this agreement because we are confidential things that you're going to have access to.
You kind of went out. I think we heard the most important part, that because the confidential. Okay, that is really good, because I've often wondered, I'm not a celeb, but I just be wondering, like, should I be dating with an NDA now? But now that I know this, I'm definitely going to be wondering. And so, Kianna, you also, like, people can come to you and have these agreements, like, hire you to write them out for them. Okay. And
yeah, sure.
Like, when you say you have clients, you can be a client and just get everything thrown up at one time, or is that something that's kind of consistent, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it depends on what the business owner needs, and so if they just need drafting, one time, we can do that. But a lot of times, like, a few of my clients are serial entrepreneurs. So they're entering into partnerships, they're hiring contractors, they have a lot of things going on. So in that case, I can be hired like as a retainer, and so I offer services as the business owner.
And so out of those, like, if you just had to say, like, you only can afford 3 right now, which 3 would you say, like, we definitely need to have as business owners? I know you're going to say insurance.
I'm saying insurance, yeah. An NDA, because that intellectual property is so important. And then if you're taking clients, probably a client agreement. Yeah. If you're a solo owner, if you have more than one member in your organization, I would say I would make the operating agreement number 2.
So, guys, did y'all have any other questions before we wrap up? Just in case, I see that I've been seeing that you all are saying that this is some good advice. I guess it was right on time. I thought I saw that earlier. And, yeah, I see Yolanda Green Exposure said excellent and timely information. But if you all had other questions before we close out, I'd love for you all to drop them in the comments so that we can you know, there may be something that she didn't cover that we do need to know. But I am going to be resharing this video, so it'll go live on our YouTube as well as it'll be on the Swagger site. And you all saw me writing, I was actually noting down the agreement so that I can make certain that when I do it for the website, there'll be the list in there, so you all can also review that as well. But in the meantime, I'm not seeing any comments. So Kianna, where can they find you and connect with you?
Sure. So I'm on IG as Attorney Kianna. My website is www.law.com, and thank you, Be the Buzz Agency, for putting that at the bottom. That is my PR firm, so definitely check it out. And then on Facebook, I'm Kianna Chennault. So any
Okay.
three of those
Well,
forms.
thank you so much. This has been like really good. Yeah, Big Homie Joker, when I saw you come on, I said to myself, you probably need this because I know you be trying to be informed about everything. So this is something that you definitely want to watch. And also, just out of curiosity, because I know that you were saying, you know, like you're familiar with the laws of Georgia because, of course, you live in Georgia. But if someone wanted to like hire you from out of state, would you be able to, you know, like research it and still be able to assist them, or would you?
So I may be able to assist them, or at least offer templates, but I cannot give legal advice for other states though. Um, but I can do like business services. So I kind of have to see what they need because everything doesn't
Well,
require
this has
legal
been
advice.
really good. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me. And if there is nothing else, then I see Yolanda said, I definitely want to catch you from the beginning and sharing the valuable things. Yes, yes, Yolanda, this was really good. So thank you, so much, Kianna. You have a blessed day. What were you?
Thank you. Yes. I wanted to say thank you
Oh,
for
you're
having me before
welcome.
you
And
close
guys, I'm
out. I
going
really
to stay
appreciate
on
it.
just a minute and just kind of run down the different activities that we have going on this week with Swagger Magazine. I was supposed to get on earlier and share them. But, you know, Kianna, you're welcome to stay on while I'm doing it, while I'm closing out, or you can close out too. But basically, we do have our new Views from Swagger Tower coming up this evening at 6 o'clock Eastern Time with Keisha KB Green, and she's going to be going live on the Instagram. And then tomorrow is Theories and Thoughts, and we will have a guest who's going to be speaking about dyslexia. So that's going to be really interesting because she says dyslexia is her superpower. And I hope to have some more CEO chatter segments coming up with other business topics that can be informative and, you know, helpful for you guys. So those will normally be on Mondays at 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And of course, they're always
Attorney Kianna. Chennault Legal and Consulting Group. Yes. All right. Talk to you later.